Okay, let's just jump right in. I want to start with a question for you, a kind of strange, high-stakes question. If you had to eat the single worst, most questionable protein source on the entire planet,
Mhm.
what would you guess it is?
Most people, if you ask them that, they're immediately going to name the usual suspects. They're thinking bacon, they're thinking hot dogs, anything that's been in the health headlines for the last decade.
Right. We've been sort of trained to fear anything that comes from a cow or a pig,
Yeah.
but the real champion of low-quality nutrition, the actual worst industrial protein in the world. It doesn't walk, it doesn't run, and it has absolutely no saturated fat.
It's a protein that has been, chemically abused, dismantled, and then just artificially put back together. It's so ultra processed. It makes a simple hot dog look like, I don't know, a health food salad from a local farm.
So our mission today is to do a deep dive on this substance. We are going beyond the nutrition label and right onto the factory floor. We want to expose just how far industry will go to turn cheap waste into, well, premium-priced health food.
And here's the first thing you really need to get. This mystery ingredient is an ultra-processed byproduct of another huge food industry. It is quite literally profitable leftover waste. We're talking about textured vegetable protein, or TVP.
TVP. Sometimes you see it as textured soy protein, TSP, right?
Exactly. It's the king of low-grade, high-tech food manufacturing.
So TVP, that's the beast we're hunting. Let's start at the very beginning with its chemical birth. It all starts as something called defatted soy flour.
Right. And if the goal was just to give people soy protein, they would just grind the beans. Simple. But the goal isn't just protein, it's the high-value soybean oil.
Yeah.
And to get that oil out, they need some industrial help.
And that help comes in the form of what our sources call the hexane shock.
Yes, the hexane chuck. To get the fat out of the soy flour, they can't just press it. It's not efficient. So they use hexane, which is a petroleum solvent.
A petroleum solvent. What does that mean in, like, plain English?
It's a key ingredient you'd find in gasoline.
Okay, I have to pause here. So let me ask you this. Would you, if you were making dinner, soak your main ingredient in a bucket of a gasoline solvent? Even if some guy in a lab coat promised you that, oh, it just evaporates.
And that is the core industry argument. That hexane evaporates quickly, leaving, little to no residue. And it's cheap. That's the main driver.
But is that a scientific guarantee? Or
Yeah.
just a convenient line? Because from what we can tell, there really aren't any independent studies proving zero residue.
And that's where this regulatory loophole comes in. It's something called GRAS,
GRAS.
generally recognized as safe. It's a designation that basically allows manufacturers to use their own studies, their own internal stamp of approval. They're essentially giving themselves permission to use a process that involves a component of gasoline.
The economics of this are they're wild. So the point of TVP isn't really about creating a healthy meat alternative.
Not primarily, no. It's about getting every last drop of profit from oil extraction. You get the oil, which is valuable, but now you have this massive problem, millions of tons of this defatted soy waste.
And you can't just throw it away.
You have to monetize it. It's the industrial mandate. Turn a waste disposal headache into a billion-dollar revenue stream. It's like that dark analogy we came across. Sewage sludge was a problem until someone rebranded it as biosolids fertilizer.
Yeah.
The stuff didn't change, just the marketing.
That's a powerful comparison. And this defatted flour, before it even starts its journey to becoming fake meat, it already has issues. Heavy metal contaminants.
That's right. Specifically, we're talking about traces of lead, arsenic, and cadmium. So to recap, our healthy protein alternative starts as a waste byproduct. It's been bathed in a solvent, and it's carrying heavy metals. That's our baseline.
Wow. So that's just the start. Now we get to the manufacturing process, the restructuring phase. We've got this inedible powder. How do you turn that into something that even looks like ground meat?
You thermomechanically restructure it, which is a terrifyingly accurate name for what they do. It involves extreme heat, extreme pressure, basically forcing the proteins to change their shape completely.
What does that actually look like?
Well, they heat the product up to, incredible temperatures, often around 200 degrees Celsius. That's almost 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they force it through this tiny little nozzle. It's a process called extrusion.
Like a giant Play-Doh machine.
Exactly, but an industrial, violent one. The pressure and heat make the material puff up, creating those spongy, fibrous chunks that are designed to mimic the texture of meat. They're engineering a texture that just does not exist in nature.
It sounds more like an industrial chemistry experiment than, cooking. But just changing the shape can't be enough. The material itself has to be edible, stable.
Absolutely. And to do that, They perform some pretty extreme chemical manipulation. They start by drastically changing the pH of the whole substance.
And how do they do that?
They add sodium hydroxide.
Sodium hydroxide. Oh, sounds familiar.
You might know it as lye.
Lye, as in drain cleaner lye.
The very same.
Yeah.
A super alkaline, highly corrosive substance. They use it to basically shock and unravel the protein structure. Then later, of course, they have to add an acid to try and neutralize it again. It's just a chemical assault.
So a hexane wash, extreme heat, lye, and then an acid bath. I can't even imagine what the stuff looks or smells like at this point.
Oh, it's dreadful, which is why the next steps are all about the cover-up. First, the color. They have to bleach the product using either hydrogen peroxide or titanium dioxide just to get it to a pale, neutral color.
They bleach it. And the smell.
They have to add chemicals just to deodorize it.
Yeah.
The natural smell of this processed byproduct is apparently so bad, they have to engineer the smell completely out of it.
The audacity is just staggering. So after all that, solvent, heat, lye, acid, bleach, deodorizer, you're left with these dry, spongy chunks.
Welcome to what we like to call the oily cardboard phase.
Exactly. They rehydrate these chunks, and then they add back in cheap seed oils like canola or corn oil to replace the fat they ripped out with the hexane, and the result is this spongy stuff that tastes like, well, oily cardboard.
Which brings us to the final and maybe most complex layer of the whole thing. How do you make this tasteless, odorless, colorless husk delicious?
Enter the flavoring explosion. This is where it gets almost funny.
Yeah.
To make it taste like beef or chicken, they don't just add some spices. They use this complex matrix of flavor compounds.
Often composed of 50 to 100 different chemical compounds. These aren't just extracts. They are engineered molecules designed to hit your taste receptors and create the meat sensation that just explodes in your brain.
They are literally building the flavor of a steak from scratch with a massive chemical formula, and then you add tons of salt, colorants, flavor enhancers.
And just in case the first round of heat wasn't enough, it often goes through a final drying phase at 175 degrees Celsius, so it gets cooked with intense heat not once, but twice.
This whole process is the very definition of an ultra-processed food. Now let's talk about the marketing, because TVP has been incredibly successful since the 60s by positioning itself as the solution to a problem it basically created.
It's brilliant marketing. You still see it today in health food aisles, sold as the healthy meat alternative.
And the sales pitch always focuses on what it lacks. It's always. No cholesterol, no saturated fat, high in protein, so it gets labeled heart healthy. They distract you with the absence of a couple of things and hide the entire industrial process.
Which is the complete opposite of what you're replacing. Real, unprocessed animal protein gives you zinc, bioavailable iron, B vitamins, a complete amino acid profile. TVP, on the other hand, is just this denatured, chemically damaged structure left after all the value's been stripped away.
Okay, let's get into some practical warnings. Because beyond just being low quality, there are some real health things to consider here.
Right. We mentioned the potential for residual chemicals, heavy metals. Then there's the incredibly high sodium content they need to make it taste like anything. And of course, a lot of people have digestive issues or allergic reactions to this stuff because the protein is so mangled.
But there's one critical warning, one that could actually interfere with medication, and it's about the soy itself.
This is a huge point. Soy naturally has compounds with an estrogenic effect. And here's the kicker. That effect is not destroyed by all that intense heat processing. Not at 200 degrees Celsius, not at 175. It's still active.
What does that mean for you, the listener?
It means if you have a thyroid condition or if you take thyroid medication, you need to be extremely careful. You should not eat this stuff within 4 hours of taking your medication.
4 hours? That's a huge window. Why?
Because those estrogenic compounds can interfere with the absorption and the effectiveness of your thyroid medication. It directly impacts your hormone balance. And that's a serious health warning that just gets lost because TVP is marketed as harmless filler.
And we should also mention that since this is a byproduct of the massive soybean industry, most of the soy is genetically modified, which means it may carry residues of herbicides like glyphosate, just another layer of chemical exposure.
This whole list of industrial insults is why TVP earns its title. Some people might say, what about soy protein isolate or SPI? That's also bad. And it also uses the hexane process. Yeah. But TVP is definitively worse.
Why is it worse?
Because it goes through more. More heat, more pressure, more chemical restructuring, the lye, the acid, more bleaching, more deodorizing, and then that final flavor bomb of, up to 100 different chemical compounds. It's the sheer intensity of the manipulation that puts TVP at the top of the list.
The ultimate irony is that TVP is really a product of fear. Fear of natural fats, fear of cholesterol, and it redirects our attention away from the process itself. We started this deep dive looking for an animal product. We ended up in this industrial rabbit hole of hexane lye and hyper-engineered chemical flavors.
The whole thing is proof that when something is marketed as healthy by just highlighting what it doesn't have, you need to look twice as hard at what the industrial process added.
So the next time you look at an ingredients list on a meat substitute, a protein bar, whatever, we've been trained to check the fat and the cholesterol first. But maybe the very first question we should be asking is, what solvent did they use to get the fat out in the first place?
Something to think about for sure.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.